I'm a bit late. So let's go ahead and talk about Need for Speed hashtag. I'm a bit late on this, to be quite honest. Yeah, probably should have done this a few months ago, but I don't really want to talk about Need for Speed hashtag so much in itself, but more development. There's a lot of things YouTubers talk about on the internet about development. A lot of them don't particularly know what they're talking about, and today I kind of want to talk about why Need for Speed hashtag as a whole needs to be taken with a grain of salt, and why it doesn't really particularly matter, because that game is now Need for Speed Payback. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get straight into this and not ramble. I kind of want to actually get like my point across, so we're going to get straight into it. So for those that don't know, I'm going to do a quick recap on what Need for Speed hashtag is. So Need for Speed hashtag was a concept art, or a concept prototype for the last Need for Speed game. In this, you can kind of see a picture. It looks like Prostreet kind of, with your kind of your race setup, and it looks all legal and stuff in the day. Very, very interesting concept. Looks pretty cool. To put this very, very simply, this looks like Need for Speed Prostreet 2 in the modern day. I'm not going to dwell on this too much because I'm pretty sure you guys already know what Need for Speed hashtag is. This has been covered to death. I kind of want to talk about why it doesn't really particularly matter, and why I think a lot of YouTubers have kind of put this in like a bit of a hyperbole situation where they've kind of over-exaggerated what could have been, because in the end of the day, it's all development, and that's kind of what I want to talk about in this video. So let's talk about it. So Need for Speed Payback is Need for Speed hashtag. Changes happen in development. This is one thing which I see a lot of people talking about, and this can also apply to Most Wanted 2012 for those that didn't know. Again, a dev build actually leaked, I think around a year ago, showing that the game was supposed to have customization, the game was supposed to have a story that follows on from the original, etc, etc. But development is development, and whether that means devs have to cut back because they've gone too over ambitious, or whether that means EA, you know, gives people limited time so then they can't, you know, fully flush out the ideas that they have, doesn't really matter. A development build is a development build. It's a work in progress. Things are bound to change, and nothing ever stays the same from what the game is originally drafted as. This is something which I see a lot of YouTubers talk about, which is really, really annoying and stupid, because as a developer, I can imagine this gets really, really frustrating. I am positive that Forza Horizon 4 probably has a lot of things that they plan to add to the game which didn't make the final release. I'm sure any other game you play, Red Dead Redemption probably has things in that game that weren't originally planned or to be in that game, which eventually made it, and vice versa. Development builds are a work in progress. That's why I don't think it's very fair to judge Need for Speed hashtag, because that's even one step further back. That's a concept art. It's not even a working build. This is something which is a vision for what a game could possibly be. Now, is it sad that, you know, Need for Speed hashtag, you know, isn't what Need for Speed Payback is? I can see why people would get annoyed, but that kind of one single concept art was probably done so early in development, I don't really think it matters. Now, yes, there's elements of hashtag which have made it over to Need for Speed Payback. For example, the setting seems very Vegas-y. That makes complete sense. But with also that being said, I don't think it's one of those things that you should dwell on as a, you know, fan of the series, because chances are it was probably never gonna happen. I can almost guarantee Need for Speed hashtag is not the only concept art or concept idea they had for the last Need for Speed game, and I can almost guarantee that these types of things will leak in the future. And that's another thing, these things aren't supposed to be in public domain. The fact we saw this is literally an accident. It's behind the scenes work it's early behind the scenes work of a development build which is now not confirmed. It's one of those things. It's really hard to critique a game, a finished product, because of a concept art. Need for Speed hashtag was probably never going to happen, not only due to time constraints, but probably work conditions behind the scenes. You know, I can imagine Ghost were probably up to their neck in work, and, you know, I don't know where the time went. We don't need to talk about Payback. I've talked about this many times on the channel. I talked about this on the podcast episode. I'll link down in the description if you want to go ahead and watch that. But the point is, things are bound to change. I don't see a lot of people online talking about this, and it's really, really weird. I see a lot of people talking about cover arts, and I see a lot of people talking about possible things which could come to games, but they never actually say it's concept art. A lot of people kind of judge to kind of their own assumption of what happened. There's so many things that could be cut out of games. There's so many things that are cut out of games. There's so many things that are added to games during its development cycle. There's so many things that are completely scrapped. You know, if we look back to Need for Speed Carbon, there's whole areas of the map which are taken out. Whole stories, like storylines, were taken out of that game. And that's completely normal. What we should focus on as a consumer is the finished product. I don't give Most Wanted 2012 a pass just because of what it could have been. I don't think that's fair. The game is what it is. In the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what happens in development to you, because what matters to you is the final product. I'm not going to give Need for Speed Payback a go just because, you know, Need for Speed hashtag was a thing and their intentions were better, and that maybe they didn't have the capacity to, you know, kind of execute on their vision. Because to me, that's not what I bought. I didn't buy the development of the game. I bought the final game, and the final game is the final game. Now, obviously, games can, you know, bring back, you know, missing content through patches and stuff. In the modern day, that's something which just happens a lot. But in the end of the day, for me at least, like I said earlier, it just doesn't really particularly matter. It's annoying from my perspective because I see a lot of people giving games like Most Wanted 2012 a pass when really it really shouldn't. For me, it's fundamentally not that good of a game for me. It's my opinion. Please don't hurt me. This is going to get very, very opinionated now. For me, it's not too extreme enough for a burnout game. You're not doing stunt runs. You're not doing barrel rolls. You're not doing flat spins. To me, that's what makes a burnout game fun. And then it's not really like Need for Speedy enough to be on the other side where it's arcade racing, it's customization, it's, you know, not break to drift pretty much. It's a weird middle ground, and, you know, obviously before development, you could argue that they were probably aiming to be more towards the Need for Speed end, but they kind of ended up being in this weird middle ground, which isn't really either, and that's what makes the game really kind of confused for me. Need for Speed Payback, the exact same thing. I'm not going to give that game a pass just because they had this idea of doing a Prostreet type thing with a festival and stuff. It's just not really, I'm not going to give it a pass for that because in the end of the day, the game was shit. But I can see why a lot of people would, and it doesn't really make sense to me because there's a lot of games that don't do that, and a lot of games that are finished, and a lot of games that deserve the attention. For example, Forza Horizon 4. I am positive The Crew 2 was probably supposed to have PvP at launch, but Ubisoft said, you know what, pull that back for the live service content so we can advertise that before launch. And it got us all hyped because we thought there was actually going to be proper live service. Ends up being not proper live service, and instead we get R34 drift cars, and we get, you know, just shit that we don't want. Shit which should have been in the game originally, and this is all stuff which is premeditated by publishers and developers. I'm sure there's a lot of content from Forza Horizon 4 which could have made it on launch, but they actually pulled it back for live service. And I guess this is something which is a bit more of a downer point on the live service and the way publishers do things. I'm not necessarily surprised about the live service thing and how publishers are actually pulling back content for, like, you know, live service in the long run. But it is annoying, and it's an anti-consumer practice, and it's not something that we should be happy about. This all comes back to the point of development is a work in progress. If you see something at Gamescom, if you see something in E3, just know that the game is going to change. It doesn't usually, the games don't usually get set in stone to around August, September. If you see anything past that point, you're pretty much seeing the final game. You know, let's say if the game was to come out in November of that season. So, for example, last Need for Speed game, I can imagine that game probably got set around September. Then come around November, the game is probably very, very similar other than little patches. With Forza, the game probably got set in stone, I can imagine, like, early August, late July. Obviously the game comes out late September, early August, or early October, sorry. So, you know, you can see where that goes. There's a lot of things in game development not a lot of people talk about, and this is just something, I've got a little bit of an insight into development and stuff, so I can kind of talk about it. Yeah, don't dwell on these little concept arts too much, because like I said, things change, and I'm sure there's so many other ones that we haven't seen that are behind closed doors, locked and keyed behind, you know, ghosts, you know, like wall and shit. Need for Speed Payback was never gonna be what you guys think it was. It was always gonna be Need for Speed Payback because that's the way the development turned. Is it sad to see the concept art? In some ways, yeah. But you got to keep in mind, you got to focus on the game we get and where we can go from the future. And all we can do as fans is give feedback to them where would they need it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to go ahead and hit the like, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. You guys have been awesome. Stay safe and peace.